All right, welcome to the DRC meeting on Thursday at 2 o'clock. Can we, we're gonna call the meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, committee member Baranek,
Here.
committee member Schmidt,
Yes.
committee member Vanden Eyck,
Here.
vice chairperson Funk,
Here.
and chairperson Newsom.
Here,
All present, thank you.
thank you. Can I get an approval of the agenda?
So move.
I'll second that.
Okay, vice chairperson Funk,
Yes.
committee member Vanden Eyck,
Yes.
committee member Baranek,
Yes.
committee member Schmidt,
Yes.
and chairperson Newsom.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Annette, did we get an excused absence from Randy?
Randy's not on DRC.
We just,
I mean, what did I meant, what did I say, Randy? I meant, no, we're missing somebody? Who?
No, we're not missing anyone.
No.
We're all here.
We're all here.
I've been to too many hearings lately.
I
I'm sorry.
know, I know.
What am I thinking?
He must have been
We only
muted. We
have
just had this.
5. Yeah, I want 2 more. There needs to be two more DRC members or something out there. Boy,
We just had this conversation a couple minutes ago while you were muted.
I know. I was on the phone, so yeah, I missed
All
it all.
right. We all felt the same way.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna open it up to public comment. That's for anything not on the agenda. So if there's anybody that's wanting to speak, please raise your hand in the webinar. Or you can call in at 669-900-6833. And I don't even see, oh, here we go. We have attendees, but it does not look like I have anyone with a raised hand. Okay, we'll go ahead and, do we have anybody calling in? Kelly? Okay,
no, we do not.
then I'll go ahead and close public comment and we'll go on to consent calendar. Can I get an approval of the draft minutes?
Move.
Second that.
Actually, sorry, and I have one change in there.
I think I know what you're gonna say.
I know. Okay,
Page 2.
yeah, if you can make that change and remove me,
Yes,
that'd be
I
great.
saw that. Yeah, I was gonna mention that as well. Thanks.
Okay, so then we had Susan and who else? Ben and I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And the motion includes the typo correction or whatever it is that we're correcting here on page 2.
Correct.
Perfect.
Yeah, it just needs to say, instead of chairperson Newsom, she was absent, it'll say vice chairperson Funk.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay, vice chairperson Funk
Yes.
and committee member Vanden Eyck,
Yes.
committee member Baranek,
Yes.
committee member Schmidt,
You're muted, Dennis.
Figure that out. Yes.
and chairperson Newsom.
Yes,
Motion passes 5-0.
thank you. Okay, we'll go on to our development project review, design and neighborhood compatibility review of the Del Rio Marketplace and 1905 El Camino Rio.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, thank
Yes.
you. Kelly.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So this next project is review of Del Rio Marketplace, which is the northeast corner of the Del Rio El Camino intersection within the Del Rio specific plan area. So the project's located in the commercial retail zoning district, but it does have that specific plan overlay on it. This is the Del Rio specific plan that was adopted in 2012 and amended in 2020. The site area for this particular project is about just over 11 acres. And it's important to note that one of their properties is actually not technically within the specific plan area, but it is being all planned with one master plan of development for purposes of how the site functions. So a little bit of history, like I said, the Del Rio specific plan was approved in 2012 and amended in 2020. It did expand some of the uses allowed within the commercial retail zoning district that underlies the parcel. It had a kind of a focus on retail uses, but also allowed sort of some light industrial, some non-impactful manufacturing type uses, artisan type uses, as well as tourist serving uses and more job-centric uses. We did eliminate drive-throughs and high traffic uses because of the traffic scenario in that area and need for larger scale improvements triggered by high traffic generating uses. So the site was marketed to business park and grocery tenants kind of since 2020. They do have a grocery tenant now signed on to the site. And so they've developed a concept site plan surrounding that tenant space that would allow for a variety of uses. So the current application is for a master plan of development as required by the specific plan, which will establish sort of building pad locations, the driveway locations, and site circulation. It does incorporate shared access and parking throughout the entire site. There's about 4 underlying parcels. And this master plan of development, different than a little bit of how we normally do master plans of development, will need to be approved by the city council per the specific plan guidelines. So this project will finally go before council after planning commission for a recommendation. And so there is a grocery store currently proposed as the site anchor. So this is the current site plan. We can see the Valley Fresh Market tenant sort of central to the site. There was an angled design, which I know our RRM representatives will be happy to talk about kind of how that came to be. But the angled site design kind of allows for some sight lines from the intersection of El Camino Real and Del Rio. It also allows for a little bit more unique spaces around the buildings, some opportunities for some outdoor plaza spaces that really allow more of a pedestrian orientation to the site than a traditional shopping center would be. And it allows the site to have a couple different quadrants where there are office buildings kind of off to the rear corners. The office buildings are envisioned to be 2 to 3 story buildings. Some of those second and third floor uses might be residential depending on what tenants show interest, or it could be expanded office space, or it could be something tourist serving like vacation rentals or something of that nature. The applicant has also incorporated in sort of these exchange buildings, and those are envisioned to be sort of conducive to more light industrial type spaces, maybe maker spaces. It would allow some uses to go in there with potentially roll up doors, but maybe also have an interface towards some public plazas that would help for a retail component if there was one associated with the business. And then surrounding retail uses along the Del Rio frontage with a lot of pedestrian spaces and ample landscaping. There will be some drainage facilities along the El Camino Real side, as that's sort of the lowest part of the site, which will not only accommodate their drainage need, but give a lot of opportunities for some placemaking and some landscaping and softening of the site, and allow for some enhanced pedestrian connections. In terms of the office buildings that are designated with 2 and 3 story potential for residential, the overall commercial retail zoning of the site does allow for mixed use development. It does require residential on the 2nd or 3rd floors and not on the ground floor. So those buildings are in compliance with the current zoning regulations. Because they're really targeting those 2 buildings as mixed use buildings, the entirety of the site could have a maximum density of 266 units. But when they look at those 2 buildings, the applicant believes that if they did go residential on the 2nd and 3rd floor, there would be potential of up to about 92 residential units in those locations. And that also provides a transition between the residential uses neighboring the site to the east. So as I mentioned, the angled plan provides a sight line into the center from the intersection. The image on the screen is kind of a rendering from the intersection. You can see that the site is graded up slightly just for accessibility and to have sort of all the building pads on a similar level. But you can see that they've kind of created an entrance from the intersection with sort of monument signage to identify the center and create some placemaking there. And the angled plan also sort of minimizes the grocery loading area's proximity to the rear property line. If we go back to this slide, you can see the loading area here for the grocery store. And then there really is just sort of one pinch point here at the corner of the building, but then There's ample area here to buffer between adjacent residential uses and the loading area for the grocery store. And then, as I mentioned, there's drainage along the El Camino frontage, which provides some additional setback and landscape area. So the specific plan does require some attention to sound and noise for the adjacent residential uses. And so the applicant has kind of provided a conceptual sort of sound wall mitigation plan for the uses. So of particular interest are noises associated with Valley Fresh Market and some of the adjacent retail stores in terms of loading. So you can see they've planned a sound wall along much of this location and this location here to attenuate noise. They also sort of have sound walls on top of retaining walls, as a portion of the site will be below the existing grade of the residential uses. And then solid fencing and some retaining walls around the site where noise attenuation is not as important because of the uses that are proposed. So this is sort of the conceptual plan for that. They are providing as much landscape as possible between those sound barriers and the adjacent parking areas. And there is a potential that they will be following up with a noise analysis to make sure that that sound attenuation barrier is designed properly.
Now, can I interrupt just super
Sure.
quick, just on the section 3 and 4 and those footings? It seems like it provides really shallow planting area.
Yeah, so the we've been in contact sort of with their engineers, and I know that they're on the phone or on the meeting today. So we're exploring alternative construction methodology for the sound wall that might allow for some additional soil area. We're also talking with the landscape architect about if larger trees or shrubs can't be planted there, what could be planted? Could there be a vine system or something else that grows larger for visual screening and sort of buffering while still allowing that footing to remain and be structural to the retaining wall and the sound wall on top. And then I did want to point out this adjacent residential area here is under the same ownership as this center is here, and it's currently under construction with some residential units and accessory dwelling units. And they do kind of have a large basin space here that's actually on the commercial property, and they have an easement for to use as a basin. So that area will also provide some buffering between sort of the noise generating area and the residential units. So the specific plan does have an architectural theme that's kind of required throughout the entire specific plan area. That theme is kind of a contemporary agrarian theme. We see some of that contemporary theme elements in the Home 2 Suites that was built across the street within the specific plan area. Some of similar forms to what's being proposed here. So they are proposing for the Valley Fresh stores, specifically some wood look siding, board and batten elements, metal roofing, black storefront systems, and metal awnings. And the grocery anchor is the most detailed design, but the remaining buildings, they have some conceptual design themes. Of course, they will be designing them more specifically when they have tenants in mind for those spaces, but they are using similar type of materials to be cohesive throughout the entire center. It's important to note that this architecture is also consistent with the concept architecture that was approved for the Rio Ranch site as well. So in terms of signage, the specific plan has some different allowances for signage than the rest of our zoning ordinance does for a regular commercial site. So per the specific plan, the maximum signage is 1 foot per linear foot of tenant frontage. Currently, the Valley Fresh store is the most developed. Their maximum allowed signage is 116 feet, and currently they're proposing 114 square feet. So they are within the allowances of the specific plan. Seems like a large sign, but they're also set a little bit farther back on the site, and it provides for appropriate visibility from people passing by, and it's proportional to the building. There's also center identification signage proposed at the corner of Del Rio and El Camino. This is still a little bit in concept, but they do want to provide some sort of specialty signage for placemaking at that intersection. They currently have it designed kind of mounted on an entry trellis feature at the intersection. And then future tenant signage will comply with a specific plan based on how much space that tenant has. So in terms of the specific plan, the project is consistent with the Del Rio commercial area specific plan in terms of uses, landscape design, shared access and parking, and architectural style and materials. So if DRC endorses the design today, we will be doing a final technical staff review and some draft conditions for the project, preparing an EIR addendum as needed based on some additional traffic information that we have for the uses that are currently being proposed. And then we'll be at Planning Commission for recommendation to City Council, and City Council will be the final acting body on the project. So for discussion this afternoon, we're looking for input from the DRC on site design, landscape design, and architecture. And I know that the applicant's representatives and the applicant is available to answer questions as well. And I believe that they might have a brief presentation for you as well.
Thank you, Kelly. Did committee members have any questions of staff?
Thank you.
Dennis. Go ahead, Dennis.
Thank you. I have 4 questions that on one of the presentation slides that you had, there was a reference to a black storefront system. What is that? And then 2, there are sound walls, and then there are sound walls on retaining walls. Is it the intent to have the walls be the same height, or would they be staggered? We've had issues with loading areas next to residences, and I know that there's sound walls there to try to help that. Is there going to be any type of restrictions on when deliveries can be made? If it's at 2 o'clock in the morning, noise can go over sound walls easily. And then how does this, it was hard to see on Del Rio Road, but on the project across the street, there's a residential street that is coming into Del Rio Road. And on the site plan, there was an access point towards the east on this project. Was that aligning with that road across the street? I always thought that that road from across the street is a little awkward. I think there was like the anticipation people were going to turn right, to turn left, to go and do a U-turn and come back towards El Camino Real at that location. But how's those 2 roads interacting together? Thank you.
Sure. Do you want me to address those, Heather? No?
Sure.
So the Black Forest storefront system just refers to sort of the storefront, the commercial window systems that are put in place. A lot of times we see like a light aluminum, and with this architectural theme, we like to see the darker colors. In terms of the walls, it is our intent to sort of have them the same height, especially since the site is sunken below. It would kind of be our intent to make sure that we maintain a 6-foot barrier from the upper residential property so that they're not left with, a shorter 3-foot wall, and have some privacy fencing and materials left. If it doesn't turn out that the full, 6 feet needs to be required for sound, then the upper portion of the wall might be a different material, something of that nature.
So there could be then on this particular exhibit where, for instance, section 1 and section 4, then those walls might be 8 feet based on what occurs on retaining on the other side.
Yeah, I think that would be more sort of the section 3 scenario. So this is showing, approximately 9 feet from the commercial side, but maintaining 6 feet on the residential portion side.
Where the 2 meet though, where 1 and 3, I don't know if they do meet, but if a section 1 or a section 4 abuts 3 or 2, what's that relationship going to be?
So the site, grading, is intended to sort of create sort of a uniform grade along that rear property line. And so the top of the fencing line would kind of be the same height, and then this obviously would vary based on how much that site needs to be raised or lowered in order to achieve grading
Okay,
and proper drainage. The driveways, I think we probably can't see it very well here. So the residential road that comes in is Obispo Road, and that's quite a distance up here to the east.
the
That's that
existing road?
existing Obispo Road, and then the aligned Obispo Road on the Del Rio Ranch property is a bit to the east. Maybe we can see it on the zoning map here. So this is Obispo Road currently, and then it aligns into the Del Rio Ranch project here. There's a service driveway for this project in about this location, and then one of the main access driveways is in this location here. The main access driveway that comes in right here is proposed. We're working with the Del Rio Ranch site to make sure that their main driveway on this side aligns with this driveway so that we can retain unrestricted turning movements and allow people to turn left and right out of both of those driveways.
On the Obispo Road, I thought that was staggered. Has that been changed on the project across the street? I thought for instance, in the orange area, it's like the road that abutted the residential area was more towards El Camino Real than where Obispo Road intersects.
Yeah, the final design for that project had them aligning. Was very
Okay.
important to our Public Works Department to make sure that they aligned properly.
Good, okay, thank you. And then the loading
Oh,
area.
the delivery restrictions. At the design review committee phase, we haven't sort of finalized conditions for the project. And that's definitely under the authority of Planning Commission or Council to place restrictions on the project if they see fit for neighborhood compatibility. I will say, as some background, we have had some commercial projects where restrictions have been discussed. And it was kind of discussed that it's very hard to dictate a trucker's schedule, especially when they are a multi-state grocery store delivery, or even for a Starbucks or something like that. And so what would happen when we would end up putting restrictions on projects is the trucks would just sit and idle until somebody could be available and the delivery was allowed. And so we are, hoping that the sound walls and that, certain sort of landscaping and buffering can be put in place, knowing that it's very hard for us to dictate, international delivery schedules.
What are the anticipating operating hours of the market?
I think the applicant and owner can probably best answer
Okay.
that question for you.
Thank you.
Yep. After we have staff questions, we'll open it up for public comment. If anybody is wishing to call in, that phone number is 669-900-6833. Again, that number is 669-900-6833. Any other questions of staff?
Yes.
Hi, Susan.
Hi. Quite a few here. First, in the parking lot, I don't see anything about lighting. Is there going to be lighting, and will that be shielded to preserve the surrounding character of the neighborhood?
Yeah, so there are certain requirements, obviously, to keep parking lots lit and safe from a safety, security aspect. Our municipal code requires that all lighting be shielded and directed. So with building permits, they'd be required to submit a plan that sort of shows lighting levels throughout the site and ensures that there's no light spillage off of the site.
Okay. I also see a nice array of trees in that parking lot. I know one of the goal of that, of course, for us, in thinking of design, is to let the trees grow up so that you've got shade, and it makes it easier for that. But we've also seen that sometimes retailers prefer to try to keep the trees dwarfed so that the signage of the building is more visible. I'm wondering if the expectation here is that we will actually let the trees grow enough to be useful in terms of shade for the parking lot.
Yeah, so we have a newer condition that addresses that we place on most projects that does require that trees be maintained in a way that they can grow to their normal height and canopy spread. So we'll be placing that condition on this project. I know the owner, Clint Pierce, is available for questions as well, and sort of continues to own and manage multiple retail centers, and he can probably speak to their philosophy on landscape maintenance as well.
That's a very good point, though. And there are definitely shopping centers that we have in Atascadero that aren't following those sort of protocols, and the trees are pruned and sprayed with a growth inhibitor so that the trees never reach, the desired shade and canopy for what this is. But that's definitely something we need to be concerned about here and in other projects in Atascadero.
Okay, thank you. And then let me refer to a moment to the large format handout that was given to us. I guess you can't see that through my screen. On page A4, I was confused there, and this may be something, I don't know if this is a staff question or an applicant question, but I see in section A over in the upper right that we have a property line between office 2 and an existing residence, and there's no sound barrier. And then I see in section D at the lower left corner of this thing, that between office 2 and an existing residence, a property line and a sound wall. So I'm puzzled as to whether we have residences that are fairly close that don't have sound walls or fencing.
Sure, and I know their designers can probably speak to that. Some of the section cuts you'll see a little bit of it's cropped, but on your screen here, I believe that this is section cut A, which goes in a different sort of direction than section cut D. So that residence with the sound wall is right here, and it is adjacent sort of to the parking and entry area for office 2. Section A is kind of a cut through the entire site this way, which then it looks like goes on to the Del Rio Ranch site. And I'm not sure if there was an existing residence that maybe hasn't been demolished on the Del Rio Ranch site. I know there were some old foundations there. RM can probably speak to that, the exactness of that, but just generally section cut A goes this way through the site, and then section cut D is this direction.
Thank you for the orientation. I see now that the upper right-hand side is next to the road, and whatever existing residence is if there's one, is across the street and won't be retained in any case.
Correct.
While we're looking at this picture, what is the structure that is nearest the upper corner of Valley Fresh Market by the trash enclosure? Yeah, that one.
This structure here is an existing residence. It's part of that original subdivision. And then this lot here is a joint detention facility basin.
Okay. I'm a little concerned about that we have a trash enclosure on the wall next to the residence that is closest to there. Am I reading that correctly? I guess it's next. It is next to the basin area that you just mentioned, but it is on the wall by that closest residence.
That's
Has
correct.
thought been giving to moving it maybe a little bit, moving that trash enclosure over to the next section where there's an additional buffer space before you get to residences, and also to that being next to residents that are new and are under the same ownership, so that people coming into them at least know what the deal is coming in.
Yeah, I think we can talk to the design team about that and pose that question. It looks very doable. I did also want to point out that there was conditioned with this residential development to be a public access easement that comes down from South Mirasol Way into the commercial property to allow these residents to be able to access into the commercial center via on foot or bike. So this area right here is a place where residents could come through and hop into this plaza space here and come into the commercial development.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. I assume that the trash enclosures are scoped such that that they're ready to handle the new SB 1383 requirements.
They're gonna have to be.
Yes, I believe they have
There's no
been
option.
designed, for the green
Yeah.
waste bins.
Good, we're all in that world now. Well, and all, and also the edible food and non-edible food that has to be handled on the scale coming out of a grocery store is different than just getting an extra, make sure you have a green can for all of us at home. Okay, the loading dock there is the back wall of Valley Fresh. Are we anticipating trucks queuing there?
I think we could probably speak to the applicant team. I know they've been in, constant communication with Valley Fresh Market and their needs. So they would probably best be able to answer what a delivery schedule on a daily basis might look like.
Sure. I mean, it's always a dance. You want to try to keep that impact on the neighborhood as small as possible, but you also need to allow the business to function. So, okay. That set of questions, and then I think I had something else further back here. Yes, on page A8, there is metal railing pictured that's black. It's not chain link, but it's more of a structure, open railing structure. Can you describe where in the project we would find that? And what's the experience with how well that material holds up over time to look nice versus looking like chain link fence?
I think that's a good question for the applicant team.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
That'll do me for now.
Okay, any more staff questions? Otherwise, I can have the applicant present. Seems like he's got a list of questions for him.
I'm done with my questions.
All right, so am I good to have the applicant do his presentation? Looks like it.
Hey, can everybody hear me okay?
Hi, Scott.
Ooh, thank you. Kelly, thanks so much for a great presentation. As always, it's so easy to follow that. I'm gonna try to bring my screen up. If everybody could tell me whether or not they see this. I'm on that page A8. Councilmember Funk, I appreciate your questions. And I'm gonna be a little informal. I do have a prepared presentation, but I want to try to answer your questions as well as I go. But I do have myself, I'm Scott Martin with RRM Design Group. I'm an architect and principal here. I have our landscape architecture team with me as well, Christopher. We have our planner, Patty Whalens, here, as well as the applicant himself, Clint Pierce. And I think we even have a civil engineer. So I think between the team that is here, there are no questions we can't at least say we will consider. Some of these are very detailed and great, and I always appreciate your thoroughness. So I'm gonna go through a presentation. I'm gonna try to answer questions as I go. But if I didn't touch upon anything that you did say, please feel free. We're here to add as much clarity as we possibly can. I'm gonna just do this as a PDF, I think. I like to talk and I like to draw. That's what architects do. So I might even actually draw on the screen or something like that. I was hoping to see you all in person today, but I will take, this is not so bad, to be honest, sometimes. So I get maybe a little more control than I should have. Briefly, we're gonna touch upon a couple things, not trying to repeat anything Kelly said, but our overall site concept, some of the circulation and access points that were brought up, a couple site features and building placement that we think really make this a place as opposed to just a shopping center. Then we'll get into a little bit of our building design and landscape concept, the specific plan conformance, because I do think that's important, even though, as Kelly mentioned, we have a piece outside of the specific plan, and then hopefully what the next steps are and where we're going. So Really appreciate your time. I have a slightly further zoomed out site plan than what Kelly had. And I really just want to talk a bit about context. I think this is, as a Atascadero resident, I've been very excited to see this area of town change and really start to gain some momentum. With the hotel across the street, I think there was some precedent set with some of the architecture. The revamping of the specific plan is really exciting. There is still residential in the area, and I think we need to be very cognizant of that in our transitional elements and our buffering elements. So I was very pleased to hear some of the comments about screening and fencing and buffering. I think it's been on our mind the whole time, so we definitely want to share how we got there. For us, this is one of the most important intersections in town, and we really did want to start there and address that, not just from a vehicular standpoint, but also from a pedestrian standpoint. So we have a visual connection in the entire site plan. I don't want to speak for Clint now, but I think I scared him the first time I showed him this. A typical retail center would have been at 90-degree angles. And what we all determined was that this wasn't a typical retail center anymore. It was a place that could function almost 24 hours a day, where you could have a variety of business types, the flexibility that's needed for today's market. None of us have a crystal ball, but I'll tell you, even if we did, we'd probably get the changing retail and office market wrong, because who knew that we'd still be on Zoom 2 years later after going home. So I just think building in some flexibility here in this site plan was important, but addressing the context was as well. We built that from the corner. We wanted to engage the corner with buildings, with architecture, and with people. So providing a great walkway. And then we started to connect that both from a visual standpoint and a pedestrian standpoint through the site. So we created a paseo that led to the anchor tenant. And this really is about Valley Fresh. This is a grocery store in our northern area of town. I think half our residents are just doing backflips from what I read on Facebook and whatnot. I know I'm excited, but we wanted to do more than just the traditional grocery store. And that's why I think, what is the applicant has brought forth is Valley Fresh, that they do some very exciting things. There's a deli, there's an opportunity for outdoor eating, where you can actually buy some food and sit outside. That's why we thought some of the office uses and some of the non-traditional retail really made this not only an opportunity for head of household jobs, but an opportunity to create a place where you could hang out all day. You may be over here brewing coffee and selling coffee at your coffee store, but come walk over for lunch and hang out in the plaza. And so really the site design became more about a series of outdoor spaces. It is a Atascadero. It is. We are blessed with such amazing weather and climate that we wanted to take advantage of that. So really we looked at circulation paths and where we could give almost every use its own little outdoor space and gathering place. We're taking advantage of what's outside the walls, as that through COVID and other things has really become almost more impactful and more used than what's inside the walls. So you'll notice that almost every retail place, or even these sort of flex industrial spaces, that we do provide gathering and people space outside of the buildings. We felt that was very important. The access here, we have been talking to Rio Ranch. We're excited about that synergy and that interaction, and alignment is important. The whole idea of the buffering, I want to start to touch upon now. We know this is the primary loading spot. There is no dock. There is no elevated dock like you see at some grocers. This is just all at grade, and it'll be done with hand carts or forklifts, depending on what the product is. Grocers have a lot of different suppliers, so I can't guarantee times. I don't know, Clint may speak to that later, but we did want to provide area for at least 2 trucks and maneuverability. But then what we did is we tried to screen that, not just once with a parking bay, not twice with a parking bay and landscaping, but 3 times with this basin, and then the applicant's own project next to it. So we really did try to take into account, how could we elongate the site to create the greatest buffer possible? And everybody picked up on it. Here's our pinch point. At this point, you shouldn't hear or see much truck idling. They should be moving through the site. The trash, that's a great concept. I think we could either move it this way or the other direction. We have 3 for Valley Fresh right here. So Councilmember Funk, I like that comment. I think we could open that up a bit. I will say also that trash and sound walls kind of go together. So the sound wall concept is in development. Commissioner Schmidt, you mentioned the retaining. I do want to just be very careful that, when we speak retaining, we're talking a couple feet, not a huge amount. So really it's the sound wall requirements that we're looking into, and we don't want them too tall, but anywhere they would be over the 6 feet would be back behind these 30-foot tall buildings. So I think there is some visual screening that will happen as well. And everything that you'd see on the residential side would only be 6 feet. Wow, that was way too long on one slide. Let me try a couple of these other features. I think I talked a little bit about some of the amenities, the paseo, the plazas. We also are really looking at a multimodal type of place. So we're encouraging bike and alternative forms of transportation. There's good access both from the neighborhood and the surrounding area. We do think it's important though. I think in the retail market, especially the outdoor spaces, the outdoor dining, the gathering, those are what start to define place. And we wanted to provide as much of that as possible. The unknown with the retail market is scary, but the known is people still like to sit and watch each other and have a cup of coffee together. So there's actually quite a bit of emphasis on what those outdoor places are within the package. Let me keep going. From a building design standpoint, this is sort of a threshold, a transition. Like I said, the hotel started to define and pick up on a little more contemporary twist. As you go into the residential neighborhood, there is still a very sort of bucolic and agrarian nature that defines a lot of Atascadero, and we're trying to fit right in between there. I think we're finding a good spot. The specific plan had some very good guidance on that, and I'll touch a little bit on conformance to that as well. But I think these are true roofed buildings. They will have gabled roofs that you can see. They will have tower elements, exposed rafter. Those are the kinds of things that we actually want to see on the retail and the office, but even the R&D. That doesn't mean we still need some mechanical wells, and we still have some opportunities for other building elements, but we do think a true roof is really important to a lot of these. And that just goes back to that sort of derived agrarian form, the simple gable being the most common, if you will. As you see throughout the package, the specific plan itself has a lot of color and materials, and we're building on that. We saw these metal rails as something that might be addressed on the office on an upper floor where you'd have a balcony or a residential level on an upper floor. It would not be ground level. They're very durable. They they meet building code requirements to keep fall protection out. It is an expanded metal. It is not like chain link. It's not like that woven thing. It's almost like a solid sheet that has punctuations in it instead. However, happily open to other ideas. So if there's something you feel more appropriate, I think when you look at the specific plan guidance, there is sort of an emphasis on some metal and some industrial type feel. And we felt that for the light industrial for the office, that this tied into that industrial feel very well. I still see, some wood railing and some fencing for some of the retail. I think we can blend these two together to create a sort of connection to nature, a biophilia, if you will, with the wood railing, but still an industrial built world. So it's kind of a blend of both. I hope that makes sense. But that is by far anything we're gonna, stand strong on. I think it's appropriate, but not a necessity. What I do think is a necessity is, and we're trying to set the tone on Valley Fresh. This wants to be the anchor of the site. We're looking for approval on this building from you today. I think bringing in some of those wood elements, some board and batten, and some horizontal siding is very appropriate for this. We put the metal on the roof so that there is still exposed roof metals with high pitches, so you'll actually see them. Some of the awnings, some of the lights, the storefront system that was touched upon. That's where we thought the metal could be more of an accent material, whereas the specific plan really highlights it as a wall material. I think there's something a little more personable and humanistic about things like board and batten siding and lap siding and wood siding that just felt more appropriate for a people type of place, a little less industrial, if you will. Again, we provided this in our package, but I just wanted to sort of touch upon some of the outdoor places. We find these very important. It was an interesting concept about landscaping. I think the city's changing some of their ordinance, and we're more than happy to comply with all of that. Our landscape concept is based in natives and drought tolerant, but we also really want to find ways to use landscape colors, materials to really highlight the pedestrian areas. So like that Paseo, for example, has some decorative trees along it. That, the angle of the site plan will help keep people focused on the buildings as opposed to, dwarfing trees or anything like that. There are always limitations. We're dealing with a lot of water and 10 feet of fall and other things, but we would like mature quality landscaping throughout the project. There was mention of the entry sort of threshold gateway, a pedestrian gateway, if you will, a sign that sort of talks about place and definition and some quality architectural elements just to really set the tone for that threshold, that sense of arrival. We do believe this conforms with the specific plan without exactly copying. Again, I just felt it was a little industrial and techie sleek for more of a grocer and a pedestrian environment. But we've been working with staff, and I think you can still go through and check off almost every box that we're conforming. It just does look a little more agrarian, a little more farmy in nature, if you will, which we actually think is appropriate. So this process will continue to go. We're going to work with staff more and more with the other buildings beyond Valley Fresh, and then of course through Planning Commission and Council for the overall site plan. But with that, I think I addressed the storefront, some of the access points. The parking lot lighting is essential. We want safety. We want a place where people can feel safe. We don't want homeless people hanging out behind buildings. So lighting is important. It will, of course, be shielded and kept within our property itself. So I love the idea of moving the trash. I think we can absolutely accommodate that. I hope I explained some of the loading and metal railing. So I think that's all I have for you today, but if you have any questions of me or the team, I'd be more than happy to go there.
Perfect. Thank you, Scott. It looks like we have some questions from Dennis.
Yeah, you just touched on lighting just now, and we also spoke about the connection point between the residents and the site itself. What type of lighting would be along that short corridor?
Great question, Dennis. I don't have those sort of details. We would need security lighting. Yeah, and I think what you mean by corridor is right along here.
Yes.
But we definitely need security lighting. This is not a residence. This is a basin. This is a basin. So we want to be very careful about creating sort of a no man's land. So low pedestrian level security lighting is what I would see. There could potentially be some building lighting here. But keep in mind, this is sound wall and fencing as well. All of it would be dark sky compliant though. So it's not, we're avoiding light spill, but enhancing pedestrian safety.
Yeah, I guess my only concern would be that's kind of a dead area in terms of use on the property. And so some people entering, in fact, I know some people in this area who are very excited about your project and they do want to walk to it. But this particular location where they would be coming in isn't extremely active. And so behind the store, got to get to the paseo to be able to kind of get into the more of the active area. And so I'm just wondering what safety would be provided so people can feel secure.
I think, staff actually had the same concern about that. I think early on, I think that we mentioned that to the applicant about trying to better align that pedestrian access with the Plaza corridor there. But the access easement's already in place, but I'm wondering if there's change. Well, obviously the trash enclosure needs to move, that'll help. But I think, yeah, you bring up a good point. And I think I want to direct the rest of the DRC to look at that issue. It feels like it's going right into the loading dock. And if there was a way that it was better aligned, and maybe it's just moving the trash enclosure and pushing the building 5 feet to the north or something. I mean, literally that kind of tweak, so you can get this line of sight through that plaza area to that pathway. I think that's what.
Maybe not have right angle walls as you enter right there on the right hand side as we're looking at this, have more of an angle point in the wall. So it's opens up as you get to the parking lot versus having this narrow entry that's formed by the walls itself or by the property lines by itself. Yeah, that right there. So maybe from the corner to the tree, have the path go or something. So it's just wider as you get to that area.
Dennis, I think that's a great suggestion. Maybe even a paving change or something that really allows this connection to be a little stronger. I love that.
Especially for pedestrian safety, and as you start getting them, if you have kids and families that are coming in that direction, that is a hard site with those trucks coming in the backside too.
I wanted, hi, Clint Pierce. Thank you, committee, for hearing our project today. I was just going to throw in on the lighting, something like bollard lighting. I think we could do something that was very decorative, but safe at the same time. That would also soften it as you start to enter the residential area and not have a what feels like a floodlight on the backyards. But something maybe low, maybe softer, but bright enough to be nice and safe, but also to create an environment and kind of a feel also. That's Scott's specialty, but I just thought I'd throw that out because I think at the Madani Inn, we have a path that goes up to our pool area and we use bollard lighting there, and it's plenty bright to see everything and feel safe, but it's nice and sort of decorative at the same time.
Thank you, Clint. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to open it up to public comment. If you're in the webinar and like to speak, please raise your hand. And let me see on our attendees and participants. Let's see. If you are wanting to call in, that phone number is 669-900-6833.
You can use the raise hand function, and if you're on the phone, I believe you press *6. I see one phone in caller.
Go ahead. See if they're unmuted.
I don't think anybody's raised a hand, Lorelai, unless you see anybody.
No, nothing yet.
Something about a meeting. I'm getting messaged about a meeting ID. Do we need a meeting ID to get in?
Someone's trying to get in.
You should just be able to follow the link.
Yeah, there's a link on the agenda and you shouldn't need the meeting ID to get in on the agenda cover page.
Okay. It's always nice to have, the additional options to call in or be a part of the Zoom, but the technology part sometimes, I don't even remember what number it is to unmute myself sometimes. So we'll give it a few more minutes and then try to get a public comment. If we don't have anybody that's actively able to do that at any time, if someone does raise their hand, I can open up public comment again. so that we can allow as much participation in this project as possible.
That's great. And I'll also remind the public, if they're able to listen in through any other way, that this is the first step for this project. And we will be having a hearing at Planning Commission and City Council as well to discuss the project. And we're happy to receive comment at any time from the public.
And
before
people can
then.
also email in and text in and call me and call Kelly. I've had people call me in the middle of the meeting. They can also do that, you know, if they're not able to get through on Zoom.
I have someone that's messaging they can't get in right now.
Have them call me and they can give me their comments and I can put their comments directly through. I've done that before, so.
Want me to put your cell number out there? I'm just kidding.
805-470-3488, if you're listening, is my office line right here. I will talk to you live and put you through to the DRC directly.
And we will put you in the Hollywood Squares when Phil is able to get you online.
Yeah,
It's a telethon.
yeah. Call now. And here he is. I got a call on my cell phone. So hang in there just a moment.
Phil is quite the comedian.
I'm not sure that's the person. It's probably somebody asking if he wants to update his car warranty.
Undoubtedly.
It's engaging. I think they want to participate.
So I have Jeff Oslin on the line here on my cell phone. So let me see if you can hear. Speak up, Jeff.
Hello, this is Jeff Oslin.
Can you hear him?
Yes.
You can.
Okay. All right.
That's good. Sorry, I can't get in. I can't listen on the phone. It's not allowing us in without a meeting ID. So my comments are, I think this is a beautiful project. And I think if you take the applicant, he's one that you can always take at his word. He's done fabulous projects in the city of Atascadero. He knows the city of Atascadero. And I'm absolutely in favor of this going forward. And I think the way it was designed is fabulous, and that's my comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Oslin. Anybody else want to call in? I think it's because they didn't go through the agenda link. I think sometimes it's hidden in the bottom of the packet.
We did see Jeff pop up in our attendees, but
I know.
the link didn't work properly.
Kind of strange. Okay. Do we have any more questions of the applicant or staff?
I do have a couple more comments, but first let the owner talk about the project.
I just, there were a couple of questions that I wanted to answer. I think one was hours of operation. With the grocer, especially with a full service high-end grocer like this, it's going to have a full bakery and coffee counter. They're going to expect an early morning crowd, even if it's just to the bakery and not to fill their shopping cart. So 6 a.m. is kind of a logical start time. I know in San Luis, you can see some of the markets, Ralph's over at Madonna Plaza, they open at 6. A number of the large format full service grocers like to open at 6. So I would say probably a 6 to 10 would be sort of, a pretty safe hours of operation for the grocer. That's not set in stone. That's going to be ultimately sort of set by Valley Fresh, the operator. But I would expect a 6 to 10. And then the trees being allowed to reach full maturity. I would like to point to one of our projects, which is Irish Hills Plaza, which actually Phil and Dennis both had a hand in creating along with ourselves years ago. We really pride ourselves on our landscaping out there. And believe me, we spend a lot of money every year taking care of that. So, we fully intend to have a beautiful landscaped environment here.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Clint. We're excited. Any more questions?
Yes, just a couple of comments. One was in the plaza, in the outdoor space that's next to the market, which would be your biggest sort of sandwich area or whatever. What's the plan for shade there? Or is there?
Certainly, I think I can address that, maybe Kelly. So there's a couple trees planned for that area, as well as an arbor, a trellis structure up against the building. There's even some shade there as well. And then beyond that, it'd be tables and chairs with flexible umbrellas. You know, really that ultimately, certain times of year you don't want too much shade. Now you can choose the right trees that don't have leaves and things like that. But we want the visibility through there as well. So we were a little cautious about overly. I think at one time we talked about a trellis in the middle of the plaza, but we left it a little bit more open for that function. But there are trees planned there as well as tables and chairs, umbrellas, and a lower roof element over next to Valley Fresh.
Okay, I really love the attention to outdoor spaces in this design. It's very Atascadero. I also, as an electric vehicle owner, was very pleased to see that you distributed EV parking so that you've got a couple of spots next to each of the buildings so that the employees can charge up their cars while they are at work and not take up the spaces that are next to the retailers and your grocer. So kudos on that, and on the bike racks, and also on the permeable paving for managing the space there. And then do I understand that in the entry plaza that as you approach that from the corner, that you've got the stairs in the center, and then at the side you've got curved ADA ramps on each side. Is that correct? So like embracing that space?
That is absolutely correct. There is a bit, again, we have about 10 foot of grade change from the back of the site to the front of the site. So those buildings will sit up about 2 to 3 feet is the latest I saw on a grading plan. So there will need to be a couple steps, but what you see highlighted as on note number 12 shows the 2 ADA ramps as well that go around there. It is meant to slow people down. I'd hate to see someone come with a bike or anything like that through there, but there is the requirement for a ramp. We went ahead and put 2 just to flank it in there, and I think it'll work rather well, actually.
Sure, and that doesn't look like something that would really invite skateboarders, which is probably wise.
If you know what doesn't invite skateboarders, let me know, because it's becoming more and more of a challenge.
Well, true. They watch all of those cool things on the Olympics, and there we go.
A little bit of sand.
Everything is a challenge.
Okay, and then could you explain just where the roll doors are for those spaces that might be a roll door, because we're a real dearth of those nice spaces with roll doors.
Sure, it's interesting as you look at those. Oh, sorry.
And just how trucks would move through the site.
So it's interesting as you look at those type of spaces, and we have a lot of them. Clinton, Patty, and I kind of looked around. We looked over at Jobella, Bristol's, there's some good examples in Atascadero. We even went into San Luis and looked at some of those other examples. There's a variety of opportunity, and we think the site plan is right, where both Exchange 1 and 2 have the opportunity for frontage. Many of these, I'm going to say this raw, I hope this isn't offensive to anybody, but it's like a reverse mullet, where you now want to party in the front. You want storefronts along the visible activity along the plaza. You want someone to be able to sell, whether it's the coffee or the bakery or whatever. They want frontage. Sometimes it's a furniture store. And then it's the backside that becomes a little bit more of the business. That's where you really need, sometimes like where Kelly's pointing right now, you still want parking spaces, but you could have bollards that would pull up and then give you access to a roll-up door when you do have deliveries. Okay. So that's what we're showing on Exchange 1. Exchange 2, you can see it has access right along the drive aisle. So someone could literally roll up a door and get right into their FedEx or whatever. Still limitations. These are not semis. These are box cars and things like that. So it's a much, I see this much more as sort of a maker space, as a smaller startup before you're ready to go into a bigger environment. So The roll-up doors, to answer your question, roll-up doors on the back side, although now all of a sudden people are putting roll-up doors on the front side and getting that indoor-outdoor environment again.
Mhm.
So really flexibility is key with that. You kind of build a box and create enough openings that they can do what they want. But the idea is there's a quality frontage, a visual frontage towards the plaza, towards El Camino Real, and there's more of a back of house behind it.
Sure, that sounds very good and appreciate the attention to that. And then the areas that the office buildings that might be as much as 3 stories and run to 45 feet there, those are overlooking residents on the north side. To how much sight line do we have from the upper floors into people's bedrooms over there? Or do we have
Certainly,
enough
I think-
landscaping to block that?
I think that'll vary by exactly where you're at. You can see we put our outdoor space for Office 1 on that side as well, just to sort of remove the building. There's a 60-foot parking bay, so you got 24-foot drive aisle plus 20 feet of parking on either side, plus an additional setback for landscaping along the edge, and then landscaping along the internal edge as well. So by the time you look at property line, which most people don't know unless there's a fence actually up there, we're 80 feet at the smallest and up to almost 150 feet away. Again, I know many Atascadero residences, I think even the applicant is putting some 2-story homes that get close to a similar height. So we're not that much taller than a house, and we're putting the short end, the sort of stubby end of the building facing that way, which honestly is going to end up with windows 90 degrees to that. So the privacy is important. We're trying to address that as best as we can.
Good. That sounds fine. I just appreciate knowing that that's attended to and with enough space that you're not looking straight down into somebody's jacuzzi.
Thank you, Scott. Susan, are you complete with questions?
Yes, I believe I'm complete with questions. Thank you.
Okay, Emily, do you have any questions or comments? Not at this time. How about Mr. Jeff Vandeneykoff?
No, I didn't actually have any questions yet.
Okay, thank you. Dennis.
I just want to note that in our email today that there was a letter from Scott Huffman of Mission Oaks Center, and that he stated that they support the Marketplace project. They did have 4 issues or 4 questions about the project. There was drive-through, valet fresh signage, the residential density, and delivery truck travel path. And I believe all those were addressed, but I just want everyone to know that we did receive that from him.
Thank you. Okay. I don't have any questions myself. I think staff did a great presentation. It was nice to have Scott do his nice layout. It's always nice to see a large scale of it and to have our big plans here. So I appreciate you taking the extra time to do so. Staff, Kelly, what are you needing from us, DRC? I think you've got our buy-in on the project and suggestions and
I definitely do. If there's anything else anybody wants to touch on just regarding the site design landscaping, I think we heard about moving that trash enclosure that's at the back of the site to the greatest degree possible. We talked about some sensitively designed site lighting, as well as lighting on that pedestrian connection from the back to make sure that it's safe and well lit while not being intrusive. We talked about the condition that the trees can sort of grow, to full width. I think that was sort of the majority of the comments. If there's anything else anybody wants to chime in on.
I would like to add that I think it'll be nice, and I think Clint, you're already doing it, is working with the neighbors and essentially your development to see what they would like to incorporate it as they're accessing the backside of that property. And then as we develop Del Rio, it's kind of nice to see the development. So far, you're the first one that's going, so you're the one that's having the largest impact as we start to shape that community and really trying to figure out what the community does want in that area and suggestions and things that are really going to benefit us. And you guys are already complementary to the existing plans for the other side of Del Rio, the south side, and its development. So thank you for working well with your neighbors and future business partners in that endeavor. I'm excited to see this project take light. It's happening fast. So thank you for all the time and effort and helping develop a part of our city that needs some more great grocers and great retailers. So thank you.
Absolutely, and really appreciate those comments. So we feel like this is not only a really important location for Atascadero, but really of North County. And we hope that it'll be a destination for North County. You know, if you're in Templeton and South Paso, I can't think of a better place to go for your destination grocery trip and some other things too. Or if you're an employer, what a great spot to locate with all of these amenities. And we also, we really did keep in mind some of what Del Rio Ranch is doing and Barrel House is doing and others in the area to be complementary and not competitive or overlapping too much.
Your design shows. So thank you again for your time. We appreciate you guys coming and speaking. We appreciate the public coming and giving us their comments and their take, and the committee for hearing this project. And we look forward to the next step, and we'll see you at your future destinations. So thank you. Okay, now we're going to go on to committee member comments and reports. And my screen just changed, so hold on. It's not like I can look across the room there we go.
There we go.
I look across the room to see who's staring at me. Okay. Emily, anything to report? Jeff? Dennis?
I wanted to say this at the end of the project, but we're very lucky that Clint is bringing this project to our community. The heritage of Madonna Enterprises has shown a long history of building quality projects everywhere they're at, from Santa Maria all the way through. And this is really going to be a beautiful project, and they really do take care of their property nicely and well.
They do. We do appreciate their, open for business and being a part of our community. They're essential to our success, that's for sure. Susan, do you have anything to comment on?
No, it was refreshing to dive back into this.
I know.
Hip deep in homelessness issues. I chair the countywide steering committee on working on a countywide plan to address homelessness, and it's been busy lately.
Yeah, it has. It's been nice to have plans again. I feel like we're, one step up. I guess that brings us into the director's report and whether or not he wants us to meet in person. How do you feel about that, Phil? Oh, he's muted.
Sorry. I'm totally on the fence, totally up to you guys. So that's a discussion we want to have. If for those of you that were at council, you heard Laura's presentation this past Tuesday, and we don't have the provisions to have this advisory body be hybrid, but we do have the option of staying virtual or being fully in person. So I think it's going to be at your pleasure. With DRC, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of an around the table discussion. Sometimes it's a format that works better in person. That's just slightly my preference, but sometimes we get better attendance when we're virtual because it's a difficult time of day for some folks. So I'm torn. I'm going to completely leave that up to the DRC, what you want to do. And I'm going to be throwing that same discussion at the Planning Commission next Tuesday as well.
I think it's hard. Everybody heard my 2 cents the other night, but Dennis, before you comment, is that I thought today we would see a higher participation, because that's where I try to gauge where we're at is to see the attendees and the participation. And we really didn't have but one public person participate. In the past, we've had 22. I mean, I don't think in my time on DRC, I've seen that many people actually come into the room that weren't applicants. So the fact that DRC can't go to hybrid is a challenge, because we then close the doors for those that want to come by Zoom, and whether that is elderly immune compromised for whatever reason that they choose to do this remotely. And perhaps it's just a matter of just clicking on easily for just a few minutes. So as much as I'd like to see all of us in person, I think that we've had more input and more participation of DRC as Zoom. I really hate Zoom myself. I'm tired of looking at computer screens all day and I feel like it's impersonal, but that's my 2 cents on it. Dennis?
Yeah, I think there's an extreme convenience factor to it. Look at this example here with the people who participated on behalf of the applicant, and mostly they're in San Luis Obispo. So for them to come up here, we're talking, another hour and a half to their time to be in person. And I think that for everyone, there's a convenience factor. For me, I know there is. And so I enjoy the Zoom tremendously. The only thing that I would change at this point is try to make it more convenient for others to access the system. We've seen in different meetings that people are trying to connect. We had today where Jeff was communicating to us through Phil's phone. It seems to me that there must be an easier or more visible way for people to link onto the Zoom meeting versus the way we have it, which is written on the minutes form, on the form, saying this is what the meeting is, here's how you attend. If it was a click like on the city website or something, it'd be much easier, even a Facebook link.
Yeah, my sense of this too is that the limitations of the format are outweighed by the convenience that it offers to our applicants as well as to the public wanting to participate. So I would go with Zoom. I do think that that Jeff's question was a good one, that the meeting ID, I think you could tell it from the link because that's the number that's strung after that when I look at what's on the front face page of the agenda. But it would be nice to list that out and list if there's a password or no password required, so that people who are joining it, if you're joining the meeting from your phone and you don't have the link to connect to, or the links in an email and you don't have that account on the device that you're using to connect, it's just really helpful to be able to have the option of entering in the webinar ID.
Crazy thing about Jeff though is he's already in the webinar, so I'm not sure why, because he posted up in attendees. I don't know why it's kind of a challenge because it's hard because when they're on Zoom, you assume that they have a speaker and a video, but mine doesn't always work depending on which computer I'm on, and some of my computers in my office do not have any cameras, so it's hard to tell what their IT needs are. And I'm happy to read what the meeting ID is, but I think everything requires a password, which I can't see unless I'm emailed the link. So I guess I could go into my, hold on, let me see if it's in.
Shouldn't require a password for the public. Plus we have the phone number,
Okay.
one phone number.
Yeah. So I could give him the meeting ID, which I saw was the 8177, but because he was in the webinar, it's so hard to tell what somebody's looking for. That's why I was like, maybe they can call Phil. That worked out amazing, Phil, for you to be able to do that for us.
No,
I know you probably don't want to, but that helped out immensely.
It's too bad we couldn't conveniently email a link to people, in some way that I'm going to attend this meeting. Could I have the link emailed to me or something?
They get agenda emailed, so you can sign up to be a part of DRC or any planning commission, and they get the notice. They get the notice that this is published, and you just click on it. So they do get emailed a link to the agenda, as long as they're subscribed. I get 2 or 3. I'm still in a.
Well, maybe we need to make that just more well known.
Maybe, and I'm happy to read off whatever we need, or maybe multiple times during the meeting we can give up the number, and they can share it with their friends. So I know I'm torn too. I think that we do better at a meeting together, but.
If I could give my 2 cents on the meeting and whether or not Zoom, for me, this is extremely convenient. I mean, if I were to have to stop and go to City Hall for a meeting for who knows how long, it's gonna, every minute I'm away from my office costs me money. So the easier it is for me to participate, the better, especially since we're in the middle of the day. If this was an evening meeting, it'd be totally different, but because it's the middle of the day. And I think that also the Zoom factor definitely gives a lot more opportunity for participation. We've seen it at Planning Commission too. We've had a lot more people. I mean, before the pandemic, we were having one person, if any, show up at our Planning Commission meetings, and all of a sudden we have tons of people show up and comment, which I think is great. So my preference is just to remain on Zoom for now, especially when you consider the amount of money that's sitting here. Looking at these screens to spend that much time coming to the meeting and also applicants and stuff, I think it's just more efficient here.
I agree. It's tax season. I got 45 days left. But I'm not going to complain. I'm just kidding. Talk to me after work today. Yeah, so I think our consensus is this is ideal for all of us as business owners and you know, us in the workforce. It's best use of our time. And then two, we're just the participation. And I think as we start seeing larger and larger projects, because we got Barrel Creek coming, I think the more participation we really need. And I think that's kind of where we should stay for a while. And I think City Council will evaluate it once every month. So right now, every month we'll have the conversation if we have to. If not, we'll just continue on this path until we have to go back in person. It'd be nice if we could do all of these meetings going forward hybrid, but
I know,
having the limited financial resources and the staff resources, it's not possible.
yeah.
So I think this is the most cost-effective way.
Oh,
And
good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
what else are you bringing us? Anything?
Well, we don't have anything on the agenda yet. Our next meeting could be on March 24th, but I don't think we have anything that's coming your way yet. At some point, we're going to see Barrel Creek, pretty significant sized scale project that will come before you, right, Kelly? Isn't that?
I believe it's already been before. No,
Aren't we going to go back again? I mean, with some changes, possibly. That's what I'm thinking.
I guess it depends on what we see in their next submittal. If it
I
is a
know.
level of change that would require additional.
That's all I know. I know we've been. That's just what I'm thinking about. I mean, yeah. Anyway, they're working out some traffic things. If it changes dramatically, we'll bring it back. If not, it may just go forward. What else do we have that's gelling? Kelly, do you know of anything else that's coming together that might?
We've been in contact with the Dove Creek site, and that might be switching ownership and partnership a little bit and changing their design a little bit. So we might see that come forward relatively soon. And I think there's a couple smaller multifamily projects that'll probably come before you.
Yeah.
In the next couple of months.
Yeah, it looks like we might not see you till April or even a little later on this committee. So
It's good with me.
What's happening with the Del Rio Ranch?
So it's going through kind of a little bit of a change right now. So they stalled for a little bit. They're wanting to modify their project a little bit. If they do that, they might have to go back through a review process for their original concept. But either way, they've got to come back. Just like this project, they've got to come back for a refined master plan of development because they had a real conceptual master plan of development for the whole thing. And now each phase require its own sort of detailed master plan of development. But they're also talking about overall changes to some of the land uses just to get the project financed and started better. But I do understand that the main discussion point is that they did close escrow. So it is no longer in Walmart ownership. It is in ownership with that group. So that's a really good thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, they're going to be trying to move forward.
Good to hear. It's going to be a busy 2022.
Very, very much so. And that,
not to mention there's that little thing about the general plan.
That's right. That's a little thing about just a general plan update. You know, that's going to be a big task. And so that's going to keep our hands full in addition to these 3 major development projects and whatever else comes along. Oh, we do have the location next to Fence Factory. That's gonna have to come forward to DRC. The vacant lot next to Fence Factory is being planned for kind of a rental equipment company, possibly Bobcat there as well. They've got a nice building that they've proposed there adjacent to the freeway and some nice site plan there, so.
Weren't they
that'll come
red
forward.
tagged?
Say again?
Weren't they red tagged? Is that why that stopped?
They weren't, they didn't do any construction without permits. They started to store some things on the property and we said, hey, hang out till you get, construction permit. So that's about it, really. They were just bringing some equipment over there.
Okay. I heard a rumor that Brown Butter Cookie Company is trying to come to town. Is that true?
They are indeed. In
Ooh.
fact, they're gonna be going to the planning commission to request a conditional use permit at the location there where Champions Gym was formerly. And it's not gonna be retail though. It's gonna be where they're gonna actually be baking the cookies. So we're gonna get to smell them in a Tascadero, but not buy them in a Tascadero.
But not buy
So-
them.
Yeah, it's a very like temperature controlled space and humidity controlled. So you're just gonna have to like sit outside at like 5 o'clock when everybody goes home and then
When they
beg for
open the doors?
cookies.
Yeah.
But they also will be parking there. They have a couple like food truck models there. And so they're hoping to participate more in Atascadero's events with their food truck. And there might be some agreements with the hotel and maybe some other, users in that center to have their cookies available.
Yeah, but it's neat to have them in town and they've been
Yeah.
a delight to work with and they need a use permit because it's using a retail commercial space as a light industrial kind of space where they won't have a retail environment. So, but we think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
The more cookies, the better.
I'll note now that I live a hop, skip and jump away. And so I don't know if it'll be good or bad if the smell does permeate to my home or not. But I do live within 500 feet of that building. And
Okay.
so-
Okay.
So noted.
Yeah.
So noted. Make sure we do a property search. I bought a commercial condo this year, Phil. So
I know it from the restaurant project with,
we always tease about that 500 radius.
There is a new restaurant coming over there though, the pizza
Yeah.
restaurant coming where
Mountain Mike's or
was.
something, isn't it?
Mountain
What's-
Mike's.
Yeah.
What's the name of it? I saw Mountain Mike's on the front of the building. Are they open yet?
Mountain Mike's will be open very soon, in a couple weeks, I think even.
Pizza
Okay.
place.
For some reason, I thought they were already open. There was still another name, a C name or something on one corner. I wasn't sure if that was going to change up or what was going on.
Have they divided the building up,
No, they're gonna use that same building that
the entire space? Wow,
Marston's was in, yeah, using that entire
Marston's.
space.
That's what it was.
hopefully
We're busy.
better.
They posted on Facebook that they were advertising for trying to get teenagers and others to come and
Nice.
apply for their jobs. And
Yeah.
it looks like it's going to be a great place to hang out and get pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard good things about their pizza.
That's true.
Good. Well, people were really excited about what's happening in the Tascadero. They can feel it and they're just
Time for the
really
summer.
energized. Yeah.
All right. Any more comments? Any more? excitement?
Piazzas downtown, I'm still going to promote that in the general plan if we can at some point. I think the areas behind, between the mall, Entrada and Traffic Way, those back alleys are piazzas up and down the block. And they're eclectic. Those commercial spaces that back up there use about half of their property. It's underutilized. I think it would be a beautiful use. It would be something that Tascadero has that no one else has, which would be piazzas.
Sounds
Speaking
good.
of speaking of downtown, Phil, I had some questions concerning whether or not the senior center is going to go away.
We have no information on the senior center, whether it's gonna go away. It's a really interesting property just because it does back up to the creek path and it's facing the park, but they, for far as we know, intend to stay. I know that Loaves and Fishes has tried to work with them to partner up to find a location together for their Meals and Wheels program, but that hasn't happened. Tim Eccles with Loaves and Fishes is still desperately seeking a new location for them to expand, to buy a building. But in terms of senior center, they haven't spoken to us for quite some time. And They haven't used that building extensively, but as far as I know, they're still operating out of it.
Okay. I
Mhm.
had some other businesses worried about their long-term placement and how that's gonna
Yeah.
happen downtown, so.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right,
I mean,
that's all I
last I
have.
talked with Carrie, Rogers, the senior center, she, and noted that they're aware that, that's a building that maybe could have other uses in downtown and be more vibrant. So that, that they're conscious of that. And I suggested that, long-term, I'd love to see them at the Printery. Because you can see, because the uses of seniors during the middle of the day, you can do a great senior lunch program and play bingo for a couple hours and do classes and yoga and various things. And then after school tutoring when the kids come in preparation for the drama programs at night, you could really just have great use of that space. And as I recall, a full set of commercial kitchen equipment was donated to the Printery for that space.
Nice. Wow. Well, related. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, that came from when Lawrence College, I think it was, or somebody came in the north end of town, came in where there used to be a pizza place or a restaurant. They took it over for the school. Maybe that's the San Joaquin Valley College.
Players used to be the Players restaurant. I think.
Players, yes. Okay, so that
Yeah.
all of a sudden they had the commercial kitchen kit from all that. My understanding is that went to the Printery.
Oh, that's a lot of value. That's pretty-
Yeah, they were working on it.
Outdated too, though, maybe too.
So related to the senior center, a topic, I don't know if I brought this up to everyone, the DRC, is we will be going to the city council on the 22nd of March to talk about the vacant properties at Centennial Plaza. Those properties are going through a process. It's a little bit of a slow process, but our next step in the process is adopting this plan development zone for those properties, which is one step in a series of creating those properties as surplus properties and selling those properties for private restaurant retail development. So the plan development that we're going to be suggesting has some design parameters to it and land use parameters to it. And we hope that this step goes forward so that the next step can be a surplus declaration and then making those properties available for development that we'd like to see downtown. So,
Okay.
Very good.
Very exciting news.
yeah, good stuff.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for attending, and I go ahead and adjourn it. Oh, Dennis, there you are.
I'm
I
waiting.
saw you on the side.
I'm on parade right now.
Yeah, you going bye-bye? You got a
Bye.
question.
The Queen wave.
We're gonna wave you goodbye.
Bye.
Have a great evening.
Yeah, exactly. I'm joining.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.